So colleagues, we're going to get started in our open session, and I apologize to guests and people who were waiting at the lateness of the starting of this meeting. I would now entertain a motion to reconvene in open session, moved by Karen Schnarr, seconded by Sandy Shantz. Please indicate your support by raising your hand. We are now reconvened in open session, and colleagues, also to note, there is an addition to this meeting's consent agenda. It's report number 2023-069 and is the appointment of special constables. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is a traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this as an acknowledgement, as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. What I have learned from my Inuit and Indigenous colleagues is that we need to have a relationship to the land that is about stewardship and not ownership, and I'm honored to make this journey with them. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have no recommendations coming from closed. So the next agenda item is the consent agenda. And I would ask the board, does anyone have a consent agenda item that they would like to be moved? Otherwise, I would entertain a mover and a seconder. Moved by Ian, seconded by Doug. All those in favor, please indicate. Those are carried. Any business arising from the minutes? No correspondence to report. These services reports. We have none. So 11.1 is the award of the P2022-02 WRPS Pride NG 911 complaint call handling solution. This does require a motion, and I will turn the floor over to Chief Crow.
Good morning, Chair Redmond, members of the board. This first item speaks to the evolution of 911 technology and our commitment to advancing the procurement of a vendor to proceed with our planning for the implementation of NG 911 technology. So I'll be turning it over to Ms. Kirsten Hand, our Director of Finance, and she may be aided by our Director of IT, Bob Hillhorst, who's on hand as well. So over to you, Kirsten. Thank you.
Thank you. So we underwent a procurement process, as noted in the report on behalf of our Pride partners in the Kitchener Fire Department. Proposals were called. 3 proposals were received, but 1 was disqualified. So the remaining 2 went through the evaluation process, and the highest available score was Comtech Solacom Technologies. So we're recommending that the procurement award be awarded to this vendor. It's approximately $5.3 million plus taxes. And in the financial implications in the report section, it breaks down the capital and operating cost components for WRPS and the other services that we'll be paying for their portions. We also provide information on the WRPS component and confirm that the capital component is within budget. Just note the funding up until this point, we've been able to fund it through our capital reserves. The remainder is anticipated this time to be debentured with the grant that we received able to fund the first year costs related to this project. And we anticipate further funding announcements from the government that could help us fund future years as well.
Thank you very much, colleagues. If I see no questions, the recommendation that we're contemplating is that the WRPS board accept the proposal from Comtech Solacom Technologies for the Pride, WRPS Pride NG 911 call complaint handling solution, estimated at an upset limit of $5,342,505 plus all applicable taxes for the contract for 5 years commencing 2023, as set out in the report dated April 19th, 2023, and that the board approves entering into the necessary agreements subject to the purchases being within the funding envelope and the approval of agreements to the satisfaction of the board's solicitor. Are there any questions? If not, I would entertain a mover. Tony, are you moving it or do you have a question as well?
I would move, and I do have a question, so I would wait for a seconder if that's okay.
Do I have somebody who would say, okay, seconded by Doug? Go ahead, Tony.
The question I had is when I looked at the entire team, and it includes other police services as well as fire from Kitchener. I was just wondering, why is Waterloo Fire excluded from all of this? And maybe if someone could answer that question, there might be something I'm missing here.
Well, over to you, Chief.
Thank you. Bob, why don't you just speak to this one in terms of our Pride partnership and how that is structurally arranged?
Thanks, Chief. The NG911 solution is to support the 5 police agencies, and the Kitchener Fire Department comm center dispatches for the 3 main cities, Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, and the four townships. So this is related to 911 direct support, and Kitchener Fire supports those other fire departments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super. All right, I see no more questions or comments. All those in favor, please show by raising your hand. That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. 11.2 is strategic planning process. This too has a motion that will be required to update the strategic plan as outlined in the report. And Chief, do you want to introduce this?
Thanks, Chair Redmond. So this is advancing the next exciting phase of our strategic planning led by the board. And this is a partnership through you and our service. So on hand today, we have Megan Martin and also Mandy Williams from Strategic Services, and also Amanda Franciscini, who has partaken in previous strategic planning. So I don't know, Mandy, are you speaking first to this matter, or is it over to Megan? Yeah, okay. So over to Megan to lead us through, and then our staff are on board to support the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, as indicated in the report, there's a proposed timeline here that Mandy was able to help with. And in terms of updating our strategic plan, the spring of summer 2023, the service will be engaging in significant consultation and data collection activities to inform the work of several strategies. And the service's equity, diversity, and inclusion plan, which are currently under development. It is recommended that the board leverage this information collection to support the development of the next strategic plan. These consultations will be conducted with the support of the service's strategic services branch. And there is a proposed recommendation in there.
Thank you very much. Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you. I think the plan is just fine, but I do have a question, and that's so when I look at the act that was included in our package, it talks about ensuring provision of adequate and effective policing in accordance with the needs of the population. But I know the police services does a lot more, I think, over and above what's really required in the act. And so I wonder if that is in any way part of this process, or if anyone would like to just make a comment on that.
So I point well taken. I think in our previous strategic plan, it has been recognized that beyond the adequacy standards and the mandated requirements of the police service, that we are, I would say, a true community partner and looking to bolster community health and safety in many ways. So I think that spirit would be taken into, we would recommend the board continue on that path, and we would incorporate that in the community outreach and community input into the bolstering of that plan. I don't know, Mandy, if you wanted to speak about that commitment as well, and how we would envision the consultation mirroring what we've done before. And I think we've solidified that through the previous consultation and the previous plan. Mandy wasn't part of it, but I think in the conversations you've had to date, Mandy, and through Megan, that spirit would continue. And I know Amanda Franciscini would probably agree with that sentiment as well.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, I agree with that. And that will try to build the community's opinion so that we can continue in true partnership with them. And Amanda might be better placed on the specifics of what that might look like, drawing on previous experiences and following up on past successes.
Sure, I can add that a lot of times we ensure we're meeting our minimum standards and requirements by getting a sense of the statistical landscape. So what are the crime statistics pointing us towards or trends? But we do go above and beyond that with our scanning process. So what are the reach ahead and actual strategies that we're going to consider? And to the Chief's point, if we can continue thinking strategically, there's other sources of information that we're already engaged in and partnerships that we're already starting to build on that would lead nicely into the strategic business plan.
Thank you for that. Sandy, any further comments or questions?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Karen Schnarr, please go ahead.
Thank you. My question is, I noticed when I looked at proposed timelines, one of the things included is stakeholder consultations. And I remember conversations in the past about being as robust as possible when it comes to that. And I remember from our last go round, the outstanding work that Amanda did to facilitate a number of community engagement outreach roundtables that I found extremely valuable. So I'm just inquiring as whether we are looking to follow, or it hasn't maybe been decided yet, or you're waiting for the input of the board, a similar process. I would strongly support that. I mean, I found it, so helpful to hear directly from communities, but I wanted to just inquire as to whether that, those roundtable facilitated sessions, Amanda, that you did last time is something that you're envisioning as part of this. Again, you did an awesome job last time.
Yeah, please, Amanda Franceschini, feel free to just elaborate on your recommended approach for us based on that past success.
Sure. And again, we can take some direction from the board as to what level of engagement you want to commit to. It was always helpful within these focus groups to have representatives from the board, from our executive, from our EDI unit, to have those experts and oversights on hand to help answer some of the questions that came up in the focus groups. But those really were a great opportunity to hear directly from the community we serve, to see what their aspirations were, their ideas were. And certainly that can continue. I know there was some great momentum the last time where they didn't want just a pulse check once every 3 years, but that continued conversation. I think we have continued those conversations in building up some of our units. We've got intergovernmental relations now. We've got a more robust EDI unit. So there's some ongoing things we can draw from, but happy to assist in facilitating that same style of scanning where we're meeting with smaller groups and having more in-depth conversations. That's certainly a research approach.
Karen, I don't know if you have further comments. I mean, I think the thing that impressed me was that often the groups that certainly board members met with were people that felt there was a gap in their relationship with WRPS, and that cut both ways. There were people that wanted a more robust one and some that didn't feel that their needs had been heard. So it was, I thought, very, very instructive as somebody who's a member of the board. Karen Quigley-Hobbs.
Yes, I think it's a very comprehensive approach. Makes very good sense. One question, and it really just as a new board member, would the board expect to be engaged on various levels of these activities as they proceed? I know Karen had mentioned being engaged in stakeholder consultation. I'm assuming then that as environmental scans proceed, et cetera, that we would get updates, et cetera, feedback requested as the different activities are completed. Is that a safe assumption?
It is. This past history tells us anything about the future. Amanda, is this something that you want to comment on?
Yeah, so in the last cycle, while the board was having its framework conversation, there was concurrent scanning happening to which the board members were invited if there were virtual sessions, but there were also updates provided along the way as per the board's work plan. So if there were updates with statistics, as there were updates with other surveys we were doing. There were some regular reporting of progress there.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion that the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board approve the process to update its strategic plan outlined in the report before us. If I could have a mover. Moved by Karen Quigley Hobbs, seconded by Karen Schnarr. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you, colleagues. That's great. We look forward to participating in that. 11.3 agenda item is police reported hate crime in Canada 2021. Chief, do you want to kick this off?
Thanks, Chair Redmond. Happy to pass this along to Dr. Amanda Williams from Strategic Services. She, along with EDI and other members of our service, continue to lead our commitment to hate crimes across and hate incidents across the region of Waterloo with community partners. So this is a trend reporting that is provided annually, and you'll note some lapse in the StatsCan data, but helping to shape our sense of what's happening in the region of Waterloo and how we can advance our commitment. So over to you, Mandy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Redmond and members of the board. So today I'm going to present information about crimes motivated by hate reported by the police between January 1st and December 31st of 2021. So it's a year later than we typically experience. So I'm just going to attempt to share my screen here. In theory, you're seeing my screen, my presentation? Perfect. Oh, there we go. A hate crime is defined as a criminal violation against a person or property motivated by hate based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression, or any other similar factor. Suspected hate crime is a criminal offense against a person or property with reasonable suspicion that is motivated by hate, bias, or prejudice, and cannot be proven to be solely motivated by hate. These are flagged in police records, attached to violations in contravention of the criminal code or other federal or provincial statutes that are given a UCR, a Uniform Crime Reporting Code. Oh, apologies. What this graph is showing you here, even though there's no labels on it, I apologize for that. There are 3,360 police reported crime incidents motivated by hate in Canada. So this is the Canadian police reported hate crime for between 2014 on the lower end and 2021 is on the higher end here. And what you can see is 2021 saw the largest number of hate crimes recorded since the data became available. And consistent with previous years, nonviolent violations were the dominant type of offenses at the national level, with general mischief being most common. In 2021, there was an increase in all police reported hate crimes for all targeted groups at the national level, with the biggest increase for crimes motivated by religion and sexual orientation. Crimes motivated by ethnicity most frequently targeted the Black population. Crimes motivated by religion most frequently targeted the Jewish population at the national level. Within the census metropolitan areas, the rate of crime motivated by hate within Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo census area increased between 2019 and 2021, jumping from 25th from 2019 to 10th in 2020 to 8th in 2021. And when considering the population, the rate of hate crimes per 100,000 population. So this is what you're seeing on the graph there. In 2021, the rate was 12.6 incidents per 100,000 population, which was above the national level, which is that red line you see on the graph, and the provincial level, which was at 10.8. WRPS continues to work with community agencies to encourage the reporting of crime motivated by hate, and this could partly explain the change in comparative position. Within the region, there were 77 incidences of police reported hate crime in 2021, an increase of 23 incidences compared to the previous year. and the majority of which mirror national trends, they were mischief offenses. Although police reported hate crimes were most frequently motivated by race and ethnicity in 2021, unlike national trends, there was a slight decrease in frequency as compared to the previous year. The number of police reported hate crimes for 3 other motivation types, that's religion, sexual orientation, and other, increased from the previous year. Similar to the national trends, crimes motivated by ethnicity most frequently targeted the Black population, and crimes motivated by religion most frequently targeted the Jewish population. Crimes and incidents motivated by hate are traumatic for victims, family members, and community members. Incidences and crimes rooted in hate continue to be underreported in Canada. WRPS investigates all crimes and matters surrounding hate, and will work with our community agencies to support the reporting of hate to ensure that victims get the support and resources they need to feel safe and protected in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Williams. Are there any questions or comments? I have to say, it saddens me to see that trend in us uptick, but so many friends in the Jewish community do talk about the racism against the Jewish community, which is very, very troubling. Karen Schnarr.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Williams, as always. I was interested in the last slide, that second last slide, because the last slide was just thank you, but the second last slide, which talked about, you know, how do we go about addressing this? And you talked about the work that the service does with community partners. And I was just wondering if you could provide, or someone else here today on the call could provide just a bit of more detail in terms of some of the tangible steps we do to support, you know, some of these communities that are, you know, it's never good for any communities, but certainly our Black community, certainly, as Chair Redmond just said, our Jewish communities are seeing a disproportionate amount of that. And I was just curious if there's any further details related to just some of the efforts in terms of outreach to most communities and then to the broader public to try and, you know, I'd love to get to a place where we never talk about hate crimes, quite frankly, but I know that's naive of me to say that in our current climate.
So I'll just jump in on behalf of, so just even a structural awareness piece is strategic services helps to inform our work service-wide, but works really closely with our equity, diversity, inclusion units, which serves us all. So from a hate crime standpoint, we have a very robust approach to responding to not only concrete hate crimes, which have a firm definition, but hate incidents, any element of an investigation that involves some kind of a discrimination and any volatility along those lines. So we not only take a reactive approach where we're doing community outreach beyond just, say, the victims and those immediately impacted, but whether it involves a targeted group or community, that's where the strength of our networking and our proactive connections comes to bear. So not only if it's a local immediate response, but we also take the approach of what happens somewhere else in the world matters here as well. So when we see major incidents occur across North America, across the world, that may involve, you know, some form of, for example, Islamophobia, a synagogue attack, or anything along those lines, like a nightclub event like we've had in the United States targeting the 2S LGBTQ plus community. We're taking that approach so that it's all hands on deck here in Waterloo region to ensure people feel safe and secure in their existence here. And that's part of our larger equity and diversion strategy, equity, diversity, inclusion strategy to ensure that we're building up those relationships in times of peace, and so that we have the networks of support and connections so that it's not always that reactive immediate response that we do provide, but we have the relationships at hand to take an all of community approach to tackling this. And my last comment is, although the frustration and you know, the concern comes when we see statistics ebb and flow for some of this reporting, there's some encouragement that comes with the notion that we do have systems that will allow reporting to occur. And working in partnership with many community services and agencies, we know that that's the best approach, is that we can tackle what we know about And we want people to come forward and make their reports for any kind of hate crime, hate incident, so that we can tackle those in total partnership.
Karen Schnarr, any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I know I probably share the same thought. Anything greater than 0 on our report on hate crimes is unacceptable, and we try to strive to eliminate this type of environment within Waterloo region. My question is relating to the Canadian context, because I don't want to get mixed up in the stats, because this is beyond stats. I got to look beyond numbers. But you made a point about reporting, and I look at the consistency of reporting, right? So I presume that creates possibly a misconception when we look at the Canadian landscape and other regions compared to ourselves on how we report versus maybe others. Is that a fair comment? Ask it, Chief, or
Chief?
Mindy, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, so I would be inclined to say that the reporting at the national level is probably going to be pretty stable, because there is a clear designation about what a crime motivated by hate looks like under the criminal code. I think where the confusion might come into it is there is a distinction to be made between a crime motivated by hate, which is a charge under the criminal code, and a hate incidents, which may not meet that criminal threshold, but is still really important to address within the community. So at the incident level, I think you're going to see variability nationally across, even within Ontario, about how police services are doing it. But I'm quite confident in my work with the EDIU. And again, that's kind of outside of my portfolio, but I do work closely with them. And I know they follow up on all hate motivated incidences and crimes, right? So they're following up on both types to make sure that our community members feel supported.
And I presume the safety factor of the individuals reporting the hate crime, they have to feel safe that they can report it in the first place. Am I correct? So,
absolutely.
No.
And that's where we work with our community partners to really try to provide that wraparound care, so that they make sure that they're not re-victimizing by coming forward to the police.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you. I always contend that governments measure what they value and they change what they measure. So as much as these are troubling statistics, it is good to know that they're being reported and that we are acting on them. So thank you very much for all your great work. The next agenda item is the Green Team update. Chief, do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, happy to. Happy to share what I would say is a good news story, and just featuring some of the, I would say, the sophistication of our membership and our organization. So for several years, we've had green initiatives, sustainability initiatives, but over the last couple of years, it's really come into focus in the initiation of what we call the Green Team. And this is led by two members here today, Nancy Whittish and Sergeant John Clark, who are here today and supported by some key leaders in our organization. Kirsten Han is the Director of Finance, but also Chris Gibson, our Manager of Facilities, and Scott Agnello, our Materials Management. These are areas of our service where we have tangible outcomes when it comes to fleet, facilities, building design, the mechanics of our everyday work throughout the organization. But Nancy and John are going to walk you through an overview of the Green Team to show you some of our initiatives, our success, our commitment to sound practices in green technology, green commitments, and really putting our values forward as a police service and as a community partner. So I'll turn it over to Nancy to start, and I look forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Can you just confirm you can see my presentation? Okay,
Yep.
great. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you very much for having us here today to present about the Green Team. John and I are thrilled to be able to share some of our organizational achievements with all of you. The WRPS Green Team is member-led. It's a member-led workplace committee that was established in 2019. The purpose of the team is to embed environmentally friendly practices throughout our organization and to focus attention on opportunities to integrate workplace strategies that are greener. The team is made up of 14 volunteers from around the service who have an interest in promoting environmental stewardship, and the team is supported by executive sponsors as well as a steering committee made up of our senior leaders. The team focuses on two broad areas. The first is operations. So we're continually examining opportunities to create efficiencies in our workplace. This includes reducing waste, reducing carbon, as well as conserving energy. And the second is member engagement. So through educational campaigns, we're sharing knowledge and spreading awareness about actions that members can take in the workplace and at home to be greener. So we've seen many organizational benefits that result from having a workplace green team. We've seen organizational achievements such as member recognition, as well as member engagement. For example, on Friday, we have 20 plus volunteers honoring Earth Day with a litter cleanup here at HQ. And that will be our third annual litter cleanup. Our team has also worked on the development of a sustainability plan, which allows us to track and inventory our organizational achievements relating to sustainability. And that way they can be shared across the service with our members. We've seen improved relationships, including with the Region Sustainability Office, who we meet with frequently. And lastly, by having this workplace committee, we're able to prioritize sustainability by speaking about this topic regularly. For example, we provide quarterly updates to our steering committee and annual updates to senior leadership. So as a member of the administrative support branch, for the past decade, I've had a front row seat to the incredible amount of effort and work that has gone into digitizing records and eliminating paper. I'm happy to share just a few highlights from the past year that have resulted in significant savings in terms of cost savings relating to purchasing paper, toners, and printers, but also environmental savings in terms of reducing paper and waste. Our online customer service platform launched last year for records checks. And in the first 6 months alone, it has saved 30,000 plus sheets of paper at minimum. Additionally, it has also eliminated nearly 21,000 trips to our facilities. So that's in the 6 months, 21,000 times that our residents have not had to drive into our divisions to pick up a records check. Several other notable achievements have been from our finance branch, who has been working extremely hard to go paperless in many, if not most of their processes, which have allowed them to remove their photocopier and printer altogether. And this will result in savings of about 75,000 sheets of paper per year. The administrative support branch has launched several initiatives, including the electronic handling of CPIC messages from other agencies and an electronic process for warrants. So again, this is going to save thousands and thousands of sheets of paper. The warrants process also means that officers no longer have to drive from around the region to come to headquarters to pick up a paper warrant. Lastly, Strategic Services has worked to implement an e-report to justice, which replaced a paper report that we used, and it's created significant efficiencies across our organization and is saving a large amount of paper from being moved between our police service and the courts. I will pass it on to John now, who's going to continue with our achievements and also talk about our goals.
Yeah, good afternoon. So the Green Team is dedicated to reducing WRPS's carbon emissions. So to honor that, we have installed EV charging stations at headquarters in North Division. And this is with the goal to encourage EV adoption with our members and the public. This has also provided us with locations for future fleet charging if necessary. Plans and budgeting have been approved for South Division. The team has also provided advice for the new Central Division for fleet charging to reduce installation costs in the future. Our hybrid fleet continues to grow throughout marked and unmarked vehicles. And our first fully electric vehicles have been budgeted for use as detective vehicles for 2024. Go to that. So we continue to set goals each year, and we push the service to strive to do better. So for 2023, we have planned the following. We will celebrate the new LEED certified Central Division with our members and highlight it to the public. Our members are engaged with volunteer litter cleanups throughout the region. We are planning on planting trees around headquarters, and we continue our employee engagement pieces focused on idling campaigns and waste reduction. We continue to encourage each area of the service to figure out green strategies that will lead to cost savings. And two ways we are doing this, I'll speak to in the next slides. So the Green Team is introducing a new business case template that will remind members to check for sustainability. So all project managers will be using this during their design of their projects. And this has greater potential for all areas of the service to revisit their daily routines and practices to see how they can reduce costs and be more sustainable at the same time. And additionally, we are introducing a green screen checklist that anyone in the service would be able to use when hosting events. When members are using this screen, they will be reminded some of the following. So to consider remote meetings, like we're doing today, organize or suggest carpooling or fleet and personal vehicles. Bring or supply reusable materials for meals or drinking containers, and all our learning materials to be sent digitally. And they will be reminded to reduce waste and handouts and to conserve energy. So on behalf of the Green Team, I'd like to thank you for continued support of our mission, and we are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and all your good work. It looks like a lot has been accomplished in a short time. Tony, you have a question or a comment?
No, I was just clapping to commend them on their hard work and the results that they've already demonstrated.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. It's great to know that this is now a priority throughout the service. Karen Quigley-Hobbs.
Yes, I really just want to recognize that as well, but as well commend the management team for the amount of change management strategies you would have had to implement in order to have that amount of success. So kudos to all of you.
So well done. I actually really appreciated the reduced swag and handouts. You know, often anytime you have an event, you sort of think you have to do that, and then they all go on a shelf somewhere and end up in my basement eventually. So I think it's a really good strategy. Thank you very much for all this hard work and your leadership. The next agenda item is 11.5 St. Patrick's Day update. And Chief, do you want to kick this off?
I will. I will turn over to Deputy Chief Hilton just to provide an introduction for this report and also just for operational support in major events. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and good afternoon, Chair Redmond and members of the board. We do have Inspector Donna Mancuso joining us today, who is the Inspector in charge of Emergency Services and Public Safety Branch, and she'll offer you a brief summary of the St. Patrick's Day event in terms of what occurred and the costs associated to that. So good afternoon, Donna, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Redmond, members of the board. So this year, as you know, St. Patrick's Day fell on a Friday. So we did plan for a two-day event, Friday and Saturday, on March 17th and 18th. In total, excuse me, 230 charges were laid and 119 calls for service were responded to over those 2 days. Let's take us back now to 2019. That was our last significant St. Patrick's Day event. And on that day, the peak attendance on the Ezra Avenue corridor was 33,000 people. That creates a significant risk for the public and police, just based on the density and size of that crowd. 2020 and 2021, we didn't have to really worry about any unsanctioned street gatherings due, excuse me, to the COVID-19 pandemic. 2022, we saw the resurgence again of the St. Patrick's Day unsanctioned street gatherings. On that date, on the 17th of 2022, we saw 4,000 people approximately on Marshall Street. That was the size of that unsanctioned gathering on that date. So lessons learned from 2019, the city of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier University installed fencing throughout the Ezra Avenue corridor, and that prevented the accumulation of those dense crowds. That has proven effective, as we've seen now in 2022 and 2023, because it's prevented those crowds, excuse me, from attending that area. So with the installation of that fencing, we did anticipate that would result in smaller pop-up street gatherings elsewhere in that area. This year, the gathering peaked at approximately 8,000 people. Again, that's at Marshall and Regina Street area. That was on March 17th, and it was early afternoon hours and dispersed into the early evening hours. Of note, again, we laid 230 charges. That's only a slight increase from 2022, where we laid 200 charges. In 2023, we had a decrease in criminal code and CDFA charges. We laid 17, whereas in 2022, we laid 25. And in 2022, we also had 26 arrests, whereas in 2023, we only had 18 arrests. The total costing for the event was $267,000. And a breakdown of that is overtime at $181,000, on-duty salaries, $47,000, planning and analysis, $26,000, and logistics, $13,000. Just of note, Waterloo Regional Police, we're leaders in the model that we use around the province, where we have that collaborative approach with our partners. I'd like to take this opportunity personally to thank our partners, because without them, these events would not run as smoothly as they do. So thank you for that. And every year we do learn little things through debriefs and through planning on small changes that we can make in order to make the event smoother as the years go on. Again, that's just a high level overview of the event. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for this report and for all your good work. There are a few hands. I see Ian and Sandy and then Doug. So Ian, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Redmond, and thank you for the report. As someone in a previous lifetime was the Uptown Councillor and dealt with this way back when in the early 20s, I guess, 23 to 2010. Appreciate how difficult this is. Just one question, I know the answer, but I want you to say it publicly. This is just the cost to the Waterloo Region Police Service. There's also a cost to the region, to the city of Waterloo, to the universities. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for an unsanctioned party. And I guess that's a frustration for taxpayers and for business owners. And it's really more of an editorial comment, but I guess the one thing that I maybe would ask you or the chief is, I continue to unfortunately wait for the time when someone's going to get hurt seriously, when you've got this many people mixing alcohol and, you know, and it's not that the police can't control that it's out of control in some ways. That's a big concern that I have, is the cost to the taxpayer, the service having to put so much time into this, and someone's going to get hurt. And I continue to think that this is not a very it's just not something that should happen, but I appreciate the efforts that you went through to try and minimize it as much as possible, because it's a very, very difficult situation to monitor. Thanks.
Donna, do you want to make a comment on the cost? Do we have the quantum that other agencies like the region, the city have invested in the overall cost of managing this?
I don't have any costs for other agencies. I'm only speaking to our cost of the police service.
Okay, thank you. Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. My comment was similar to Ian's about cost. I've had some emails come through to me, and some of them are suggesting that the universities cover the cost, for example. And so I just want to say that the universities are covering cost from their end, and it's a cost that's shared by all of us, and remind people that this is an unsanctioned event. This is not an event that the city, the region, or anyone else is really putting on. This is totally unsanctioned, and yeah. And unless someone has some comments on better ways to control it, that's the comment I wanted to make.
You just have to listen to some of the call-in radio shows, and they've all got really good solutions to this, and so many of them have been tried. You know, this isn't a new phenomenon, and it's not just relegated to the region of Waterloo for sure. Thank you for that, Sandy. Doug, go ahead.
I'm just wondering the type of charges. What was like, can you just outline just what was the most common charge that was laid at that event?
Yeah, for sure. It's the Liquor License Act charges, the open alcohol, things like that, drinking in public, Highway Traffic Act charges. We do a lot of strict traffic enforcement in the area during that time as well. Those would be our top two. The Liquor License, 93 charges, and Highway Traffic Act, 95 charges. So those are
Thank you very much. No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just I just want to, you know, not overlook. It's $181,000 in overtime alone. And when I think about the time frame and how much overtime, and I think about how taxed our police services already, you know, I just want to once again just commend the entire service, the management, and the boots on the ground that had to put in the overtime to facilitate that, to ensure that there was some safety for the community overall. So kudos to the whole team. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to underscore one of the comments that was made, and that is, in many ways, we're looked at for our leadership in dealing with the fact that we are able to engage with community partners and handle a situation, which again is very common to any university town, certainly throughout Canada and probably North America. So thank you very much for making sure that our community is safe and feels safe despite some of these predictable challenges. So thank you very much to your team and all of the leadership. Next, we have monthly Chief of Police report. Chief Crowell, over to you.
Chair, I do believe we have one last report.
I'm sorry, we do too. I skipped over it. Oh, it's just the financial variance report. Do we really want to hear that? My apologies, Kirsten.
No problem.
11.6.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Redmond. And on behalf of Deputy Chief Fenton, happy to introduce Director of Finance, Kirsten Hand, who will lead us through this report. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. I will just share my screen to get my presentation up. Okay. All right. So 2022, from an operating budget perspective, we closed the year with $284K of surplus, which represented 0.1% of the overall budget. At this point, that surplus has been put into our capital reserve, similar to what we did last year, in accordance with our reserve and reserve fund policy. And just as a heads up, we will be coming back to the board in May with our annual reserve report, providing information on the balances of the reserves versus their target reserve balances, and information on targeted contributions into the future. So we'll be coming to the board next month with that information, and happy to receive direction from that perspective as well. So from an operating budget perspective, for resources, which represent over 90% of our budget, we were under budget at the end of the year by 38 positions. However, we did have some temp positions over budget, so it kind of nets out to about 30 positions under budget. I do want to note, though, that our sworn actuals, our staffing levels for sworn, were actually above authorized sorry, for the majority of last year. So until August, we were above complement, and that's when the 35 expansion positions were added to the budget. And that's when it started to turn more into seeing some under complement situations. And we also saw savings as a result of maternity and paternity leaves on our sworn side, which cannot be backfilled. Just to touch on a couple of the variances, there were some areas where we were over budget. And sorry, I'll just quickly note that in September, we had forecasted about $1 million of surplus, and that the surplus ended up being lower than what we had originally anticipated. And the areas that contributed towards that predominantly was our benefits. So specifically health, dental, and WSIB. You'll recall through our budget process for 2022, we phased in rates based upon projected costs. So this wasn't a surprise to us that we were over budget given that. And we did see significant overtime. So when we have vacancies, unfortunately, there's people that have to still come to work to make sure that we're providing support to the community. So we did see a significant deficit from an overtime perspective. We were over budget by 2.5 million. This was an increase over 2021 levels by 1.7 million or 44%, or an increase of 42,000 hours. So we did see some significant overtime to account for those vacancies. We saw a bit of debt charges greater than budget due to debenture costs for a new central. And we also did some transfers to reserve. So one of them being the sick leave reserve. So the board had provided direction to our previous reserve annual report that we need to start establishing a sick leave reserve. And the direction was if we do see surpluses in those lines to allocate that surplus to reserve. So we did do that. Some of the areas, and then voice radio, we did see a small surplus of about 90K. Under budget, we did see some areas that were under budget, including training, office supplies, some services and software fees. So that predominantly related to programs that started a bit later than we had originally anticipated. So examples of that would be the HRIS project, body worn video, in-car video. So we did see some savings from that perspective as well. And then just lastly, from an operating budget perspective, revenue, we were over budget or saw more revenue than originally anticipated for our community safety policing grant, which was a positive as that grant came greater than we had originally anticipated. We did see some additional cost recoveries and did receive some additional grant funds not yet anticipated. And some of the areas where we were under budget was through our paid duty. We didn't see the revenue there, but that also contributed towards lower compensation from a paid duty perspective. If I just switch over to capital, we spent, what was it, we spent 64% of our annual budget, or $35 million. From a fleet perspective, we replaced 33 vehicles. We did defer some, and we actually eliminated 3 from our fleet as an efficiency. And some of our IT projects that we saw spend includes our automated asset and evidence management solution, BI tools, HRIS, body worn video and car video, NG911, and voice radio. And lastly, from a facilities perspective, some of our major projects that were completed or in progress last year include the North Division window replacement, which was finished. Our new Central Division, which we anticipate to finish early this year, and then a number of facility renewal projects. And the last thing I'll just touch upon is in our annual report, we are required to report to the board on evidence and property proceeds. So in there, in accordance with Part 4 of the Police Services Act, you'll find information in terms of disposition of found, surrendered, or seized gift cards and other like forms of payment, seized, found, and surrendered money, as well as auction of unclaimed property proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten, and that's a really important report. I did not mean to skip over it. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you very much for your good work as always. So now we'll go to the monthly Chief of Police report.
Thanks, Chair Edmund. I'm just going to share my screen with you. And very happy to advance this month's Chief of Police report on behalf of both deputies. I'll be featuring just some highlights over the last month from the operational and other organizational initiatives. So to start, we've seen a continued trend over the past month of the seizure of some concerning weapons in our community. You may have highlighted in our social media and media release feeds that we seized an automated weapon that was found, a loaded weapon on transit near Conestoga Mall in Cambridge just at the closing of March. This is a loaded firearm found in a bag with drugs. Our investigators seized this item as well as the other drug trafficking evidence, and through the course of a couple of days led to a very successful investigation and to the arrest of a young person in the city of Cambridge, charged with upwards of 17 offenses. Equally concerning is we conducted a long range investigation that led our investigative services division, assisted by our emergency response team, to conduct a high-risk search warrant at a residence in the city of Waterloo, which resulted in the seizure of a significant number of concerning weapons, of prohibited handguns, prohibited rifles, automated in style, magazines, ammunition, and so on, as well as a couple stolen vehicles. I would describe as high-end vehicles, a stolen trailer, all-terrain vehicles, and so on, as well as drug trafficking evidence, resulting in the arrest of a 26-year-old male and a 28-year-old female from Waterloo. And to follow along this trend, excellent work by our direct action response team conducting a proactive stop in the city of Kitchener. During proactive patrol, located a male on the Victoria Street location. Somebody was wanted on a Canada-wide warrant, and through the course of their duties, seized a prohibited loaded handgun, as well as drug trafficking evidence as well. And so I highlight these just to demonstrate some of the great work, the safety issues faced by our members as well, and the weaponization that we're seeing on the streets of prohibited weapons. And we'll continue to do our work through all of our investigative teams to combat the issues of illicit drug trafficking and firearms throughout the region. And you can see that there's various pockets of all the municipalities that are touched by drug trafficking, organized crime, and the availability of weapons. Just also to highlight some of the dangers faced by our frontline patrol members as well during the past month. Just some examples. We had an incident just a few days ago in the city of Waterloo, where a couple of our officers were responding to a family violence related matter. And over the course of their great work de-escalating a situation, they came under, I would describe as under attack by an individual, resulting in an encounter where our officers were assaulted, resulting in one member in the hospital being treated for some injuries. This investigation led to the arrest and charging of a female in Waterloo for 2 counts of assault and also assault versus a peace officer causing bodily harm. There was an incident during a dynamic foot chase where our canine officer was leading the charge with our canine unit, and there was an injury resulting in the arrest and the location of somebody wanted on an intimate partner violence related warrant. Ultimately, a suspect was arrested and found to be in possession of a quantity of controlled substances. Again, just highlighting some of the exposure that our members are facing during the course of their regular duties, and just highlighting some of their excellent commitment, bravery, and their hard work in resulting in successful investigations. Moving on to some points of recognition. This has been a busy month to recognize many of our civilian professional staff. We've just closed the celebration of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, where we've highlighted and celebrated our dedicated communicators, those behind the scenes that are the first point of contact when people call 911 and our non-emergency line. We're so proud of these professionals that are on call 24/7, 365, serving the public as the main point of contact for 911 services across the region of Waterloo, and just want to celebrate their incredible dedication around the clock to serve in that capacity. We've also recognized Records and Information Management Month, and as well as Administrative Professionals Day. There's so many members across our organization that, especially on the civilian professional side, that provide that core backbone infrastructure to so much of our work, whether it's managing data, providing information at the ready, and assisting so many of our frontline services. We're so proud of the total makeup of our service and how this all comes together as one team serving the public every day. And lastly, in closing here, I just want to highlight some of the excellent work from our human resources led initiatives or officer recruitment outreach. has really turned a corner with an all hands on deck approach, acquiring the best talent available for our new officers. So at the turn of the month, we saw the successful signing of 18 new police officers, as well as 5 new experienced officers who will join our ranks in short order. And we also saw in the same week the graduation of 8 new officers from the Ontario Police College. So we look forward on May 11th to a new badging ceremony with our 8 newest officers joined by our new 5 experienced officers. And that will be that formal introduction to the community of 13 new officers serving the region of Waterloo. And the last slide in closing is just to signify that this is National Volunteer Week. We are so proud of our 1,200 dedicated sworn and civilian professionals, but the couple hundred volunteer members of our service, and they work across various groups that you're familiar with, our auxiliary unit, our chorus, our ceremonial band, victim services, and so many more formal and volunteer basis opportunities that these are dedicated citizens that team up with us in so many ways to serve our community, to make us better, to enhance all of our capacities, our event planning and our execution, to serve the public in a really proud way under the WRPS umbrella. So not only signifying our volunteers, but also all volunteers across Waterloo region. We know that that is such a strength for our community that we come together, and that is the backbone of so many neighborhoods and so much of what makes our region such a great place to live. So in closing, Chair Redmond, members of the board, that's my operational or chief's update for the month of April. Look forward to a very busy May. You'll find that as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Waterloo Regional Police Service this year, Police Week and a lot of the celebrations will come into focus in May as we carry forward. So thank you. Subject to any questions or concerns, I'm very proud to highlight those initiatives of our service.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Well done. That's a nice note to end on. Is there any new business? Any future agenda items? Information items? Once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to log into Zoom if you're not already in the waiting room. And Chief Krell will be available to take questions from the media. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Tony, seconded by Karen. All those in favor? Thank you for a very productive meeting, everybody.